probably be, if there's one feature I really wouldn't want to go without, it'd be Eloquent, I would say. And then that would be followed by the IOC container is really good. That's more of a simple thing, though. I mean, that's not even a super complicated file. The Q system is cool, but yeah, those are a few of the features I definitely wouldn't want to leave behind.
Okay. And why did you build Eloquent? Why not go with something that was already on the market?
I did actually at the start. I did go with something that was already out there, and like one of the first Laravel betas, I guess you could say. I don't know if it was ever really publicly released, but I actually used the PHP Active Record project, which it wasn't exactly like Eloquent. It was a similar concept. And then I also looked at using Paris, which is kind of a counterpart to that. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's like IDORM or something like that. And Eloquent actually takes a lot of inspiration from that ORM, and the way it does relationships are almost exactly the same as that ORM. So I did experiment with things that were out there. The problem with PHP Active Record is that it wasn't maintained anymore. It hadn't been maintained in a couple of years, actually, even when Laravel first started. So that wasn't really a good choice. And also, Paris it didn't really have all the feature support that people would want. So like I don't think you could even do like a left join at the time with Paris. So it wasn't really a feasible alternative because it didn't really have the feature set for what we needed.
Okay. Moving on to from your recent tweets, we've seen that you have a lot of support for PHP 7 and what is to come.
Yeah.
What is your take on the current PHP 7 voting, and in particular the removal of PHP 4 constructors?
I guess I don't really. I mean, I don't really have like any skin in the game as far as the PHP constructors go because I don't really have any code that uses that. I can understand how people would be frustrated if they have a large code base, I guess. But on the other hand, I do see the developer's point that it has been, 8 or 9 years since that's been deprecated or whatever. So I don't have a real strong opinion there. I am excited about the speed improvements, obviously, with PHP 7, which is something that HHVM has been really cool for. So for people that aren't comfortable installing and running HHVM, I think PHP 7 is going to be really nice since it will be hopefully an easy upgrade and give a lot of speed improvements.
And are you excited? Sorry, say again?
I just saw, actually, that yesterday Rasmus put out a PHP 7 Vagrant box so that people can play with PHP 7. So I'm probably going to give that a shot here in the next day or two and kind of see how things look.
Are you excited for what PHP 7 is going to bring, and in particular what it will bring for Laravel?
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of depends on when we'll be able to make PHP 7 the required version. So, like, of course, we want Laravel to be compatible with PHP 7 when it comes out. But as far as like actually using specific PHP 7 features, will probably take a little bit of time, depending on. Of course, I expect things like Laravel Forge and stuff to support PHP 7 really quickly. But as far as like the wider hosting environment, I'll have to see like how fast the adoption is. But I'm hoping we can embrace it pretty soon. And so yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, it's coming up pretty fast if they want to release it towards the end of this year. So.
All right. So moving on to Laravel 5. You've mentioned that Laravel 5 will be launched as stable next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's still correct.
All right. So what happens to Laravel 4 now?
We still make security fixes and stuff to older releases. We haven't actually had a security release in quite some time, I'm hoping one doesn't come up, But if one were to come up, of course, it would go into Laravel 4 and Laravel 5 as well. And of course, the Laravel 4 documentation and all that will still be on the main website with the little documentation version switcher. and really people can keep using it as long as they want, I guess. And we have a pretty thorough upgrade guide to Laravel 5. And actually, it's probably more than I've ever had. So hopefully, it's not too bad for people to even get their Laravel 4 apps upgraded fairly easily. Especially now that a lot of package developers for the more popular packages are getting Laravel 5 versions out. I've seen several come out this week, and so that was one fear I had would be a roadblock, is even if you can upgrade to Laravel 5, if your packages aren't compatible with Laravel 5, then you're kind of stuck. So I'm glad to see that quite a few of the package maintainers are getting that stuff updated.
Right. And I know that for a lot of enterprise companies, using Laravel as an enterprise framework, they're very scared of the long-term support, because they see a version coming out. Laravel 4 came out years ago, and now Laravel 5 is going to come out. How long can we expect support and maintainability to remain for Laravel 4?
Well, we usually maintain support, I would say, for the current version and the previous major versions. So Laravel 4 support could go for, gosh, that could be over a year and a half to 2 years, depending on when Laravel 6 comes out. Or and I never really have any plans for the next Laravel when one Laravel comes out. Like, I don't have any Laravel 6 plans, so it's hard for me to say when that will be. But we do try to kind of milk the versions as long as we can. I think with Laravel 4 to 5, it's not so much that a lot of underlying APIs change. Like, if you look at the upgrade guide, you'll see that there's not a lot of method changes. The only one I can think of offhand is the pagination links method change to render. But other than that, it's really the folder structure that's different, and then new features like some of the new file system and events and commands and all that route caching and all that. So even with Laravel 4 to 5, it's not so much an API thing, more of a structure thing. And now I feel like the structure is pretty good. We wanted to, the main thing was getting away from people feeling boxed into that models directory. That was kind of the main goal. And I think we've pretty much accomplished that. So hopefully this will last quite a while.
Okay. Talking about commands and events, what was your inspiration behind adding command and event architecture to Laravel 5?
So a lot of people may not realize this, but the goal was not really to have a command bus per se. It was more of, I was kind of bothered by the fact that events and queue jobs had different different method signatures. So for example, like when you have an event in Laravel 4, an event handler, I should say, it has typically like a handle method, and then it receives a dynamic list of arguments. So the handle method has like handle, and then arg1, arg2, arg3, arg4 just listed out. Whereas a queue job received that job as the first parameter, and then it received just an array of data. It didn't receive like a dynamic list. And those two things I felt felt inconsistent and felt kind of it felt sort of sloppy to have those handled in two different ways when really the implementation is really similar. And so my first goal was I realized I could unify them if they could both receive one object. And that was kind of the starting goal. And once I had accomplished that, I saw that basically the queue was a command bus. Even in Laravel 4, the synchronous queue essentially functioned as a command bus. We just never called it that. And so I figured that you can kind of kill two birds with one stone by unifying the events and queue signatures, and then also basically getting a command bus for free out of that. I mainly use commands for the queue jobs aspect. I don't do a lot of, I don't make a command for like every post operation to my application. I still mainly use them for queued jobs, which is really nice. And it has some advantages over the previous way of doing queue jobs, in that with Laravel 5 commands, they're automatically deleted if nothing goes wrong, so you don't really have to remember to delete the job manually or any of that. So that's pretty nice.
So moving on to a little bit more personal about you. but also sticking to Laravel. We want to know what is the weirdest pull request that you've ever received.
I got one when they were doing WorstCon in the United States, which is basically, as far as I can tell, like a bunch of people getting together and like eating. Here we call them hot dogs. I don't know. Basically, I don't know what if you have a different name for them there, but basically like a like a sausage on a bun thing. And they made some pull request converting like changing all kinds of stuff to do with hot dogs or whatever. So that was probably one of the weirder ones. I don't get too many weird pull requests, I would say. I get a lot of, I get a lot of personal like IMs for help and confusing questions in that regard, but not so much on the pull request aspect.
So, as a developer, as you're called, we want to know what is your favorite non-technical things to do to keep yourself productive?
My favorite non-technical what?
Your non-technical things that you like to do to keep yourself productive.
I really like to watch basketball, so I'm a big basketball fan. I pay my TV service like $200 extra a year to get like every NBA game on my TV. So I watch that like almost every night. Other than that, I really just just take time to just like downtime, just like hanging out with the family or just like going on a walk or something like that. And I never try to work on anything out of like guilt or like feeling pressured to work on it. So I don't really have this happen very often, but sometimes I just really don't feel like working on Laravel, and I just won't. But I feel kind of guilty, like, oh, I really should, blah blah blah. But I really don't like to do it because that's like a really easy way to burn out. I feel like if you keep like forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do. So I just kind of take a break from it for a few days, and usually, after a few days, I'll feel like working on it again. But I don't try to force it.
Are you planning on taking some time off after Laravel 5's release?
Well, I'll be doing different things. So that's kind of the nice thing about Laravel is there's really like a lot of different things I can do. So, of course, I won't be working on the framework code itself as hard as I am now, but I've got to like organize Laracon. That's a whole different type of thing. So it doesn't really contribute to like burnout in the code sense because it's a different deal. So I'll be working on that. And then I'm also working on a few new app ideas that I'll keep working on and hopefully have something to release in a few months. But and also that's a whole different thing. So it's kind of nice because I'm not totally focused on the framework code all the time. I have a lot of other different things I can be doing that are still Laravel related.
Okay, so are you or your wife more excited about Laracon?
I don't know. It might be pretty equal. My wife's pretty excited. We actually bumped it up a week because we found out that my son's school was going to be starting. Like his first day of kindergarten was going to be on the week of Laracon. So we actually moved the conference up a week so that it wouldn't conflict. And we just did that like yesterday. But yeah, she's really excited because she's never been to a tech conference. And of course, I'm always excited about Laracon too because it's a lot of fun.
Is there anything in particular we can look forward to coming out of Laracon?
It's hard to say this far out, because it's still a good ways. But we'll see. I always try to come up with something special, and I can't really make any guarantees that will happen again this year. But I usually try to do something cool or reveal something rather than just give a plain talk. So hopefully I'll be able to pull something out of my hat. It'll be worth it.
All right, and then the last question from myself: how do you deal with the difference of opinions when it comes to what Laravel should be? And because I think a lot of us have seen the pull requests and the difference of opinion on pull requests. How do you deal with that?
It's hard. A lot of people make valid opinions, and I can see where they're coming from, but it kind of all has to be weighed in terms of the greater like the greater good, so to speak, and how are thousands of Laravel developers expecting to use it versus just maybe 5 or 10 vocal developers. So, and a lot of times when you have kind of like a small group that's really vocal, it can be really overwhelming because it feels like a much bigger group where most people are probably using Laravel and don't care anything about a given discussion. So, it's always hard to keep perspective, and it's probably still one of the hardest things to do to Laravel. But a lot of times I feel like I still kind of go back to if I feel like I'm scratching my own itch, and I use Laravel every day for a variety of different apps, and it becomes fairly obvious to me if something is a problem or not too, because I use almost every feature of Laravel every day in different kinds of apps. So usually I've gotten pretty decent at figuring out what makes sense because I've something like if someone points out something's pretty annoying, I'm gonna know yeah, I know that's annoying to me too, and I can fix it. But just keeping perspective. It's still a hard thing to say no to people though. If someone submits a pull request and I just don't feel like it's a good fit or it's just not a good idea for the framework as a whole, it's still hard to kind of shoot the idea down and reject it. But that kind of comes with open source, and especially when you get to a fairly large size, you end up having to do it fairly often. So.
Okay. Well, anybody that wants to ask a question? Regarding funding.
How's it? So, just regarding funding, have you guys received funding yet? Are you looking into it, or what keeps you guys going?
No, we don't really need funding per se. Laravel Forge covers. It provides enough for me to work on Laravel full time. So I haven't really been interested in funding or anything. I have gotten a few emails from people who fund open source projects, but really things are going pretty well. So it just hasn't been something we've really needed to look into at this point.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else?
Can you hear from the back here?
Yeah, I can hear it.
If you think of everything you could dream Laravel would have, what percentage complete is it now? So if you compare the current version to what you'd like it to maybe one day have, how far is it?
So, can someone repeat the question for me?
All right. So if you have a vision for Laravel, even if current technology doesn't support it, what percentage is Laravel to that vision in its current state?
Oh, okay, I understand. I think it's really close. There are big things that I would like to do that I think are probably something you would need. I would need to pay someone to do, which might go back to the funding question. So, I would really like some kind of desktop app for Forge that was say you have a Mac desktop app or whatever that I can just drag a folder to that has a Git repository and it launches a server and deploys the code, blah, blah, blah. That would be really cool. But it's just that's kind of one thing I just don't have the skills or ability to do really. So as far as the framework itself, the actual code of the framework, I can't really think of anything huge. I feel like things are pretty much how I want it to be. So it's more just the supporting ecosystem. Could we make Homestead better? Could we make the integration with Forge better with dedicated apps and so on? So, but as far as the framework itself, I think is pretty good right now.
All right, I think that's everything from our side, Taylor. Thank you again for with us.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks.
All right, cheers, and good luck with the launch next week.
All right, bye.
Cheers.